I have the Insane trilogy sitting like literally a foot away from me, and I have not dedicated the time to playing them because I don't know if I remember them. So I'll get back to you.
Everything's
if I
a fever
actually
dream. I feel like that's the
that's the theme.
Moral of the episode.
Was
is
it real?
Everything's a fever dream. Did we actually play these games?
Exactly. Are video games just a fever dream?
Welcome to the Antepiece podcast. We're who you go when you want to hear everyone but straight white men talk about video games. Today's episode is our first, so I should probably introduce the phantom voice you're hearing. My name is Laurel Tilton. I'm joined by my co-host,
Cheyenne Lewis.
This episode is going to be a little weird. In the future, we're going to break this down into a news section, a what we're playing section, and our topic of the week. But for now, this one is going to focus on our history. How did we get here? Are we qualified to even talk about video games? You know, all the contextual stuff. So we're going to start with our history, and then we're going to go into what we're currently playing. And then by then, you've hopefully arrived at your job or your school or whatever destination you were heading to when you clicked play. Maybe you haven't even left the couch, in which case we're still proud of you. Before we get into our video game history, I want to take some time to break down that this is a part of a school project, so be nice to us. I'm getting a grade. Cheyenne is not.
We are both seniors. I guess it's really easy to combine the two of us. We're both seniors. We are both not interactive media studies majors. We're not English majors. Not that our majors are not relevant to video games, but they're kind of not, I guess, what you would necessarily think. So
we're both anthro majors.
Yeah. And we both focus on cultural things, but my main focus throughout school has been archaeology.
And mine has not.
Our schooling background doesn't necessarily fit wholly with the idea of this podcast.
So the reason this podcast kind of came about, despite the fact of us not having any educational background that is conducive to it whatsoever, is I'm in this program called Media Fellows, and it's not necessarily a second major, but it's this honors program, and recently we just built a podcasting studio. I was placed as the producer on another podcast that's produced at my school called Modern Media, and we have to do this huge senior capstone media project, and everyone was expecting me to do video because that's what I have 4 years of experience in. I was like, no, not doing it. I want to do something different. And I think the podcast kind of really came about because both of us aren't pleased with the amounts of representation and just voices that are out there that aren't straight white men.
Yep. That sounds about right.
We're both queer. To have other voices even out there was really important to us, and to get credit to do something, I feel like is, again, sort of incentive to actually do something that we had been talking about for quite a while. And so instead of it being like this, oh, what if we started a podcast? I was like, hey, I can get credit to start a podcast. And
now we have the motivation to do it because you have to get a grade for it. So we can't be like, nope, never mind.
Yeah, because it's 50% of my grade. So Be nice to us.
Yeah, be nice to us is definitely a thing. And this is, like Laurel said, our first kind of thing as far as a podcast goes. So this is my first pretty much any kind of, I would say, creative work being posted online, because y'all scary. So
I mean, you're not wrong. Before we started recording, we were talking about entrance anxiety and how there's so much pressure to be perfect and to have not things necessarily scripted, but to be well spoken and to have really nice microphones. And when you're poor college students, that's not always the reality, or you have accessibility to anything like that. So
the cool part about us in particular is that obviously Laurel is using a podcast studio that is at her school. This is not being we don't have our own podcast studio, and I'm literally sitting in somebody else's bedroom using their microphone and their setup from their podcast. So this is we are very much amateurs, but I'm hoping that we're going to do semi-okay work.
But that's that's where the project currently is sitting. Once we both graduate, because we just have a semester left, we'll see what we want to do and how we want to approach that, because we don't know where we're going to end up.
Yeah.
So
6 months is scary, let alone any farther than that. Let's see if we both make it to May. And
we'll get back to you on that. But in the meantime, enjoy the ride.
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to talk about your gaming history? Because you have a far more extensive one than I do.
Okay, yeah. I am 23. I think that's important to state that, like, a lot of the voices that we hear in especially in video games media, are like tend to be like older people who have like this great extensive history, and like were like growing up when like consoles were really young. Granted, like PC gaming, I know PC gaming master race, whatever. But as somebody who's like console gamer and coming from a like I say I'm a poor college student, but I'm in a better place, and my family's in a better place than we were when I was younger. So computer gaming wasn't accessible to me.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah, no. I don't know if it's, I don't have the mental capacity for it to be accessible to me now. But I had, I'm from like, I would say growing up, I was from a pretty tight-knit family. I have an older guy cousin he's 4 years older than me. And I grew up really close to him, and so like the first thing I have on my thing is like, I think my introduction to video games was Sega, but I also feel like the Sega games are kind of this weird like acid trip of games, and I can't remember. I like don't know if it was a dream, because like I was listening to a podcast the other day with it was the Kind of Funny Games cast with Brian Altano from IGN, and he mentioned like Booger Man, and I was like, holy shit, that's real, because for the last couple years I've been like, did I dream that? Was I imagining sitting in my cousin's room playing that at one point, or is that actually a game? So apparently it's actually a game.
I think that's funny and I'll get to it when I go through my history, but that's really how I felt about my first game too, is I remember it, but it feels so much like a false memory. And then I found it online and was like, oh, this is actually real. I didn't completely imagine that. But anyway, continue.
Exactly. Like it's like, I can barely remember like 10 years ago, let alone like really, really early memories. So I would say probably Sega, although like I was super, super into Pokemon as a little kid, but I think we all kind of were. I was really into the show. I definitely still have like at least a pillowcase from a set of sheets and things that has Ash Ketchum's face on it. Like I played a lot of Pokemon as a kid, but I would say that like that was not necessarily like kid. I don't think I still play Pokemon, so like saying like that's like a kid game, but I don't think that was necessarily unusual for a 90s kid, you know. Only 90s kids remember. So I would say like, yeah, so I would say Sega's probably my introduction. Pokemon definitely in there. It's all very fuzzy because I am not very good at time, like dates and years.
Time
like,
isn't real.
Exactly. Like I don't know when I had my like Game Boy Advance or my Game Boy Color or anything. But I've always been, and like this is one thing I've always remembered, is just like I've always been like a PlayStation kid. I've always had like I distinctly remember the PlayStation 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like I have had all of them at one point in time. Whether or not I shared them with somebody is like a whole different thing. But I also kind of feel like the PlayStation 1 may have also been just like a really bad trip, and I'm just
a fever dream.
Yeah, like am I imagining it? So I probably definitely should have looked up like what which ones of these games were on what console. So I really like, I would say the things that I remember playing the most as a kid were definitely Grand Theft Auto, which you shouldn't. Don't let your fucking 5-year-olds play that game. Like, what is wrong with people? But I played it at a time where like cheat codes was like a thing, and I didn't really play the story missions.
Okay.
So that was like a thing.
I think it's going to be interesting too, because I had such a anti-video game family when I grew up, and so the idea of like being 5 and playing Grand Theft Auto, because a lot of the stuff too, like to give background, like we haven't really talked about our history with video games together, even though we're friends and have been friends for over 10 years, but like some of this information is new to me too. So I'm just kind of laughing at tiny baby Cheyenne playing Grand Theft Auto and using cheat codes.
Yeah, and like you gotta imagine, like I was hanging out with like my older like guy cousin. Like Grand Theft Auto was the thing. I would say that like the game that I predominantly remember playing by myself though would be like the Spyro games, particularly Year of the Dragon. Nothing appeals to me more than like going around as Spyro and finding those little dragons. Like like hands down, maybe not a game I ever actually beat. I have no idea. But like a game that I hold like very near and dear to my heart. And then like Crash Bandicoot. Obviously you can't talk about like that kind of area of time where you're talking about Spyro where you don't also talk about Crash. But again, Crash was a game that I played with my cousin. So like I definitely did not beat that by myself. I have the Insane Trilogy sitting like literally a foot away from me, and I have not dedicated the time to playing them because I don't know if I remember them. So I'll get back to you
Everything's
if I ever
a fever
actually
dream.
do.
I feel like that's the
That's the theme.
moral of the episode.
Was it real?
Everything's a fever dream. Did we actually play these games?
Exactly. Are video games just a fever dream? I should also preface that The Sims were just like a really big deal and have continuously been a big deal in my life, but I don't consider those games. And I don't know if that's like a negative thing or a positive thing. I don't know where people come down on The Sims. Where do you come down on The Sims?
Okay, so I was thinking about this because when I was making my list of like video games that I wanted to talk about that I thought were like really like intrinsic to where I am now, and the thing is it wasn't SimCity, it was the one where you like built a nature park.
Ooh. I don't know that one.
So it was great. It had a function where you could toggle alien invasions and I'm trying to remember. And again, this is one of those things where it's like, is this a fever dream? Am I completely making this game up? But I didn't put it down ultimately because we had the Sims games too. But at the same time, I never felt, I don't know. Again, I don't want to say the Sims games aren't video games because they are by definition. But at the same time, that's kind of how I felt, is that they just didn't have a lasting impact on me in terms of like where I am now and the kind of games I like now, because I feel like they're so mindless that I kind of just forget that they exist. And if there are Sims fans out there, I apologize.
Well,
but I am a fan. It's just, I don't know. It's a different kind of time killing.
No, I agree with that because like a different cousin who's only a year older than me, I have so many memories just sitting with her and spending hours upon hours playing these games. So like The Sims, whether or not we consider them like true games is like a whole nother episode, I think. Is still like a pretty big deal. Just with like PlayStation, I've had every single console. I've had every iteration of at least the base game of The Sims. Granted, early on, I was playing them on the console, and let me say, like, you guys can have your PC Master Race nonsense all you want. It's all the same nowadays. But The Sims is truly a game that you don't get like the full experience of unless you are playing it on a PC.
I completely agree with that. As someone who also identifies as like a console gamer, you could not pay me to play The Sims on my PlayStation.
Exactly. It's bad. They just don't run the same way.
They don't.
Although if EA, if you're listening, I doubt it. I got lots to say to you other than this. We're going to talk about BioWare one day. Like, I'm going to come for you for that. But EA, if you're actually listening, if you want to remake Sims Bustin' Out for console, I would take it on console. Do that for me. I want that game back so bad. I like searched and found it in like a GameStop and like wanted to play it so bad, and it was just like I don't think the disc worked or something, or maybe it just didn't, like my PlayStation wasn't functioning. But oh my god, I love that game so much. I played that game with cheat codes too. It's crazy. We live in a world where like cheating is like a bad thing in competitive gaming and like in things where everything is online. But like years ago,
Sims, everybody cheated on The Sims.
I mean, I still cheat on The Sims.
If you didn't cheat on The Sims, you're lying.
Exactly. But
like that's just what it comes down to.
But like that game was the one where you like start out with like you like live in your mom's house, and then like you do these kind of like tasks to be able to move out, and you continuously go, and like there are, I don't know, there's probably only like 7 different houses, but in my head I'm like there's got to be like 20. And like the last one is this weird like you live under the sea. It's like this house that's like like a dome that's under the I don't know. I just remember it very impactful in my childhood. I loved it. So now this is the point where we actually fast forward. So fast forward to, I don't actually know how much time would be in between these things, but in my head there seems to be a really big gap between me playing games other than The Sims. So like when I was in 6th grade, I distinctively remember this because this was a very like pivotal moment in my life. Don't ask me why. Everything falls into place in my life sometimes where it's just like sticks out in my head. So like I'm going to just set the scene. I don't know what year it is because it might have been 2007, 2006. I don't know, because I'm like 1 year off of like my grade being exactly the same as the year. But I was in 6th grade. We were learning about archaeology for the first time ever in history class. The Descent, the spooky horror game where they go spelunking and find mole people, was also coming out that year. These are all very important to my whole thing. I went to Family Video, Blockbuster. I don't know. I think it's Family Video because there's definitely one still in my town, our hometown. That is still functioning. I watched somebody pull into it the other day and I was like, why the fuck are you going there? But I got Tomb Raider Legends was the game. I went and I picked it up from, I'm pretty sure it was Family Video. And let me tell you, that game changed my life. In like a really weird way, because obviously we've talked about our education and I am focusing on archaeology, so I don't want to say Lara Croft is the reason, but she is.
I'm sure there are plenty of archaeologists that would be very upset with you for saying
I know.
She is a terrible archaeologist.
She
is terrible.
She's just shooting things and ruining buildings. But I just
like, I'm going to open this chest and take a couple pieces of gold, but I'm just going to leave the rest and not document any of it.
Exactly. She wasn't any better. I know you're talking specifically from experience with the reboot games, but it's no better in the original. Good like, to know. I wouldn't consider. I'm pretty sure Legends is like a reboot version. But anyway, like Tomb Raider Legends introduced me to just like female protagonists with some guns. She had her short shorts, and those boobs. We can talk at length later about that specific thing, but I don't know. That was the first game that I truly sat down and beat by myself, and I beat it in like sections. So I rented it from Family Video, and then I bought it later on, like a couple months later, and then I sat down and I fully played. Well, I didn't fully play through. So I had the save still on my memory card.
Okay.
You know, so I played from where I had started. And I distinctively remember this part in the game because the Tomb Raider games have always been like a little supernaturally, just like, I don't know what it is with the action adventure series, like genre, where there's always like a supernatural element to it. But she's like in a dig and there's a monster, and it reminded me a lot of The Descent. It scared the crap out of me at the time, but I beat it. I beat that game.
I remember.
I beat that game, and it was lovely. I don't know if it's as lovely as I remember it to be, but it really kind of rebooted.
The nostalgia.
Yeah, but it like definitely rebooted my love for games, or kind of ignited a love for games that I didn't realize that I had. Because there was an element of storytelling that I think that the other games I had experience with like weren't providing for me. So like I never played like, I'm pretty sure it's like Metal Gear Solid that's regarded as like this crazy like change in video games. I like never played that. I didn't have that experience, and like we all love Kojima here.
We will eventually talk about Kojima in detail.
But like that's kind of a thing. I don't know. I wasn't experiencing like the kind of storylines I wanted from a game, so I wasn't playing them, and then I got that from that. I know that I picked up other games because it was on the PlayStation 2, and I know that I played other games. I'm pretty sure it was the PlayStation 2 because I would have had a memory card. I'm pretty sure it was the PlayStation 2.
Okay.
So, like, I've played some other games, not super impactful games that I, like, don't really remember. And obviously, a great many of games have come out since then. But I definitely credit that as being, like, the kind of one of the pivotal moments, because we're going to talk about the next two, which will end kind of my history in games. Very briefly, the first one being Skyrim. I know you're going to talk about that.
I'm going to talk about Skyrim.
So I'm not going to go into super great depth about Skyrim because, God, we've all been beaten over the head about Skyrim.
I thought about not including it, but at the same time, I feel like it wouldn't be, because I'm also going to include the very unfortunate, like, re-entry into video games that I had. So I feel like, for all honesty's sake, and to be, like, completely genuine, I have to include Skyrim.
Yeah, like, you can't not include Skyrim.
And if you want to skip that part, feel free to.
Yeah,
I'm still going to talk about it.
We'll think about putting, like, time codes in the down bar on the YouTube channel. So, like, or you can, we'll think about it, or we might just make you listen to it.
If you never want to hear anything about Skyrim ever again, we will include the time codes.
Yeah. So Skyrim was kind of like a weird thing where I had a PlayStation 3 and was playing things on them, but I wasn't super dedicated to any of them. I wasn't like, let me go home and spend 80 billion hours on this. It was mostly just like I was playing a few things here or there. And that was my junior year of high school. The next thing comes my senior year of high school, where holy shit, video games like really, really changed for me, thanks to, like I said earlier, we're going to talk about BioWare. Come my senior year of high school, I'm pretty sure, I want to say like January of 2013. So it would have been, again, a very pivotal moment where I have these weird kind of outerlying other kind of media attached to it. So I was watching Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, and I was like, man, I love outer space. And my friend from high school was like, you should play Mass Effect. And I was like, okie dokie. So if you go into my original save on Mass Effect 2, which is the game I started with, it's still the best game. I'll fist fight all of you. I've already gone to war about this. Number 2 is the best. If you go into my save, my original Shepherd, my original FemShep, looks a little bit like Starbuck, Kara Thrace, Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica.
Of course it does.
Yeah, I mean, I love women, and Katie Sackhoff kind of reawakened the queer side of me in high school. Definitely did. So Mass Effect did sort of what Tomb Raider did, but better. But it presented me with a story. And, like, I really like to read. Reading is my favorite thing. I like to consume very story-heavy media. And my interest in video games hasn't changed. If we were to talk about the games I've played in the last couple years, there's, like, a continuing theme of very, like, story-driven games, especially story-driven first-person games. That's kind of, like, my genre. It's not really a genre because, like, you can get story.
I mean, same.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm talking, like, spoiler alert, guys, for anybody who could not figure this out already, but I fucking love Uncharted. Like, if that wasn't, like, a thing that you got from me talking about how much I love, like, Tomb Raider, like, Uncharted, again, changed the game for me, but we're not going to talk about that today. But, like, Mass Effect did this thing where it was, like, you love outer space, you love really, like, strong, like, women, potentially queer women. I'm, like, okay, so, like, I'm a bisexual woman. I say bisexual, it's just, like, less, I think, rigid, but I like women, men. Pansexual is probably more appropriate, but I don't like really.
You're not monosexual.
Yeah, like I'm not. I like don't like to explain it to people.
Yeah.
So like typically, bi and queer are the labels I choose for myself, just so I can get that out of the way. But like having the option of like romancing a woman in a game was really weird for me. Of course, y'all ruined it, BioWare, by not letting me romance Miranda.
I feel like this is just becoming a call out.
It is. EA.
It's fine.
Fucking fight
it's
me.
Fine.
But I romanced Keygen. I'm also as cheesy romance stories really get me. But just like the idea that like somebody could express some sort of representation in a
Yeah.
game. And ultimately, like, there's a lot of problematic things within, like, a lot of the BioWare storylines, a lot of the Dragon Age and Mass Effect. They have some problems, but, like, that was kind of my introduction to romancing. I think it was a lot of it. Everybody's introduction would be the first Mass Effect to, like, romances in video games that, like, kind of affect the storyline. So, like, that really just, like, gave me, I don't know, I'm, like, obsessed with the Mass Effect series. And
I know you are.
It'll, like, really come through, I think, throughout this. It's died down a little bit because of Mass Effect Andromeda, but, like, Mass Effect really kind of, I, like, streamlined those games. I played 2 and 3 really quickly. I waited a couple months, and in 2013 played 1, 2, and 3 again. I've played through the second one, like, 6 times. It's seriously, like, such an impactful game to me, and, like, I definitely owe my interest in video games to that series. So, yeah, that's basically kind of the broad, like, the overview of my video game history up until the near present. Because I don't want to talk about, like, my game of the years last year, What Remains of Edith Finch. But, you know. So, Laurel, since I just talked for, like, 45 billion hours, tell us about your gaming history. Tell us about Skyrim.
Well, actually, I'm going to start at the beginning just for the sake of, like, being chronological. But there are a lot of things that I feel like we shared just in different ways. So my first game, Fever Dream, Acid Trip, I don't even know. So I still don't know why we had it. When I can't even pinpoint when I played this. But King's Quest VII, The Princeless Bride, not to be confused with The Princess Bride, which would have been a lot cooler, but no, there's, as far as I know, not a video game for that.
Was this a PC game?
This was a PC game.
Okay, because I've never heard of this. You put it on here and I was like, what the heck is that? Why?
I don't know why you would have heard of it. So it came out in 1994, but I know I was playing it, like, way after that. Because the thing you need to understand is, one, similar to Cheyenne, my family's a lot better off than we used to be. And we had this clunky-ass desktop in my bedroom that I shared with my sister. And there was this drawer next to it that just had a bunch of different games and, like, weird AOL CDs, and we often didn't touch it because it was just kind of like that one drawer that nobody really talks about because there's just a bunch of stuff in it and you don't want to actually sort through it. But this game was in there, and I don't know how it got there. I don't know if my dad got it. Like, I cannot
Did your parents
pinpoint.
buy the desk from, like, a yard sale and the person who just owned it?
No, because the desk was part of our bunk bed set.
Oh, okay.
So
was the computer
built
still
in.
there when you and I started hanging out?
Yes.
Okay, now I definitely remember this.
That computer. And this game was in it. And, oh my God, my sister and I were terrified of this game. Because, so the way the game is set up, it's point and click. Mm-hmm. And it's by Sierra Online, which apparently, again, like, I had to search so many weird terms to find this game when I kind of remembered that was a thing that happened in my life 2 years ago, and I searched it and went down this rabbit hole to, like, make sure that this game actually happened.
And it wasn't a fever dream.
And it wasn't a fever dream. It was just really weird. It was actually, they were inspired by Disney, and so a lot of the colors they were specifically trying to copy off of Aladdin. And the way it starts off is there's 2 characters, there's a mom and a daughter, and they both get sucked into this time spiral black hole thing, and they end up in different universes essentially, and they're trying to find their way back to each other. And so there are chapters, and it would switch on and off between playing the mom and playing the daughter, and you could die so many ways. And I think that's what scared me and my sister, because, like, it wasn't Nightmare Before Christmas, but it was basically Halloween Town. Mm-hmm. There was a level of the game that was like that. And I just remember very vividly that everything you approached in that level would kill you. So there was, like, a weeping woman, and the minute she, like, turned around, you would just die.
That sounds like an episode of Doctor Who.
It does. She was not a weeping angel. This is not Doctor Who. But then there were like these weird, like not Tweedledee, not Tweedledum like characters that would also kill you. And I think we were torturing ourselves because we kept playing it even though we were so terrified of it. And I actually, found it online and tried to play it again. And even though I'm much older and really the jump scares that it has and the mechanics of it are so easy and it's not scary, there's still like that little tiny, 5 or 6 year old me is like terrified of it.
It's like a twinkle of terror because like I had that same experience recently with like the It movies where like I know the original like TV movie was not scary and I went and saw the new one and I was fine, but like I still cannot watch the like original one.
That part with the woman, you never see her face, but first like I just kept imagining how terrible or grotesque this woman must look. And it was one of those, like, your imagination is way worse than the reality because they didn't animate it. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of the first game I ever remember playing. And again, it's really weird because I don't know who got it, why we got it, but my sister and I played it and hated ourselves for it. And then I think after that, the biggest game I remember playing is one, like that Sims game, but I don't really want to talk about that one as much. It wasn't that important. But then we get to the Harry Potter PC games.
I mean, and honestly, these two kind of like really are so like they just make so much sense.
Don't they?
The first one, obviously, you'll talk about it later, but knowing what I know about your gaming history and knowing the thing that comes a little bit after the Harry Potter thing that you have on your list here, really just makes so much sense.
I gravitate, even though like I often won't play them, I will gravitate so much interest-wise towards horror games or anything that like terrifies me. But we'll get to that. But the Harry Potter PC games, also, we never had the first one. Apparently, I mean, all of them are terrible by this point, but they're great. I love them. But the mechanics of the first one was really, really bad, and we never actually had it. So with the PC series, I played 2 up until 6.
Did they finish that series? So you played 2 to 6. So they also did they do 7 and 8, or was it just 7?
They had 7 and 8.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was a 2-part game based off of what the movies did, but they definitely finished it. There was a Deathly Hallows game. But I think this is where you had the experience of playing with your cousin.
Yeah.
I had the experience of playing with my dad because the Forbidden Forest and the Chamber of Secrets terrified me. Again, apparently I'm just like a glutton for punishment because I played all these games that scared like the living shit out of me. And so Harry Potter was one of them. And I played the second one. And honestly, I don't know why everybody isn't jumping on using the jelly beans as currency because honestly, best decision they made. But
God forbid you actually use the currency that J.K. Rowling set up.
Jelly beans.
Jelly beans.
Jelly beans. And then when you get to the, third game, you start using, they start using pumpkin pasties and the cauldron cakes are like the extra nice currency.
The developers of these games really knew they were going for the chubby weird kids.
Apparently.
Just, like, in their rooms, like, just playing these games and crying about Harry Potter. They knew their audience.
I know. But the second one I just have such, like, loyalty to because my dad would have to sit with me as I played the Forbidden Forest part. And he would sit with me when I would play the Chamber of Secrets part. And then the third game, you could beat it in probably like 2 hours if you tried really hard. And the third game became this video game that I would always play whenever I was homesick from school. And so it was like that entire series. And like I played the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th. The 5th was the first game that, because it was actually pretty extensive. I was surprised the jump in quality between the third game, which, oh my God, going back to EA and just bashing EA, you didn't have to do Ron and Hagrid dirty like that. their faces look so bad. Like, it was ironic
Yeah,
because
we're coming for you.
We're coming for you. This morning, my sister actually sent me on Tumblr. Someone had done a bunch of screenshots of Ron's face from the second Harry Potter PC game, and goodness.
You should send me those.
I'll send it. That's one of the things where I feel really bad that this is just audio, because you have to experience these images. They're awful. I played the other ones. The fifth one was like the first game where I was like, I beat this by myself. And I was very proud because, again, looking back, it's probably super easy, but that was the first game where I was like, oh my God, I beat this entire game. Like, I found all the things, and they actually changed the setup so that you could explore the entire castle. And so for someone who also grew up like learning to read with my dad because of Harry Potter, being able to explore Hogwarts without huge limitations to which classrooms you could go to was just really amazing. And the navigation system was based off of the Marauders map. And it was just, I don't know, I still look back so fondly to the point where I found on eBay where someone had all 8 of the PC games in a bundle for like $80, and I sent it to my dad and I was like, Mike, you want to buy this for me? He didn't, but it's fine.
Maybe one day. Maybe that'll be your graduation present. Congratulations, you graduated college, you have a degree. Now go spend the next 4 months
playing Harry Potter.
This. I have to say, like, the one series that I think has been like neglected so much, not necessarily, obviously they have games, the Harry Potter series has games, but like I feel like the series has been neglected in ways that like other hugely massive series haven't been. Like, obviously we've had a couple different iterations of Star Wars games and whatnot, but I feel like we could do so much with the Harry Potter series. That it would be so cool.
Because again, the 6th game, I never actually finished the 6th game because by that point, I don't know, like that's when I started to kind of transfer over to consoles. So I never finished it, but that game, I mean, looking back, it's not gorgeous, but at the time, like the graphics were actually pretty decent. They opened up so much of the grounds that you could explore. And like they had cave systems that were on the Hogwarts grounds that you could just go in and explore. And it was so neat to just have this open map essentially of Hogwarts for you to explore, even if you didn't do anything else. But anyway, yeah, EA, if you want to reboot all of that, I think you should, because,
we would take that over this weird fucking Johnny Depp stuff that they're trying to like force feed us.
Give us the Harry Potter games. We don't need Fantastic Beasts.
Exactly. I mean, we will take Indian Harry Potter, Black Hermione, gay as
everybody,
Dumbledore,
gay everybody.
But like, just give us what we want. EA,
right?
You're messing up all the time. Just give us what we want.
I think that it's great that this is the first episode and we're just angrily bashing EA. Anyway,
I mean, honestly, like EA is definitely super problematic, but obviously they've created our favorite, like some of our favorite games. So
there's praise and also critique. It's fine.
Yeah.
But then I mentioned this earlier when you were talking about your history, but my parents were pretty, and still aren't super like pro computer games or video games or anything.
That's wild to me because like my dad definitely owns his own console and like plays. So,
which is
but
wild,
I come from a family that like where my parents are really young and like don't have children when you are teenagers. That's, I'm doling out some real advice this episode. That's a big one too.
Don't have children when they're teenagers.
That's a lot of the reason why I think that gaming was so consistent in my life. Whether or not I was playing was because of how young my parents were. So it's like a generational thing. See,
but my parents waited really late to have kids, and we also live on a farm. And so the expectation was to be, involved with our animals. And for a while
in 4-H.
And in 4-H, avoided Future Farmers of America, thank God. But anyway, my parents were super duper anti-consoles. And so the first anything that was in our household that wasn't, a PC, was a Wii.
Specifically for gaming.
Yeah, which wasn't for gaming. It was not at all. It was, my dad is in a very tech-driven job, and it was like a remnant that we ended up with. But
hand-me-downs.
We had to oh my God, I honestly think we might have made a PowerPoint to convince my parents to let us get a Wii. And the big selling point was that, oh, there'll be physical activity. There
Wii
wasn't.
Fitness. That was the selling point for the Wii. Not to just your parents, but literally everybody. They were like, we don't have to be on the couch. Motherfuckers, you want to be on the couch while you play video games. Nobody wants to get up and move.
But
we were done with that stuff after like 6 months. People were like, this is too much. I just want to sit back, relax, and shoot some people.
But the thing is, I couldn't tell you like a specific Wii game that
I remember playing the Rabid games.
Yeah, we played the Raving Rabid games a lot, but that was, I think, because those were just fun to play with your friends. And then Mario Kart, of course. Yeah, Mario Kart, obviously. Of course. But other than the fact that the Wii was like kind of the only reason we have consoles in our house now is really why I put it on there, because we literally had to be like, we'll move, we'll do exercise, there'll be dancing just
it's to get... It's family oriented. Oh, we played so much Just Dance. Sorry, I just totally cut myself off.
No, it's okay.
Said dancing. Anytime any song comes on at like work that is
on
Just Dance games, I'm like, man, where's Laurel? I need to get down.
We're not good dancers. Don't take that as to say we are. We're not. But then, and this is the part I was not looking forward to talking about, but again, for transparency's sake, my dad, I'm blaming it on him. My dad one day sat my sister and I down because he had found this YouTuber. And he was like, oh, this guy's actually kind of funny, and he plays video games. And
poor Mike. He didn't realize what he was getting himself into.
And this was pre, like, 1 million subscribers. But
I bet you guys can guess.
It's PewDiePie. And it's one of those things where I'm going to say it out loud, but he's a complete dumpster fire. And
so bad.
He's so bad.
I'm sure he'll pop up later eventually.
He probably
on this
will.
Podcast if he opens his mouth anytime soon.
But to be honest, that's what got me. Because again, we had the Wii, but again, what you said about like the 6 months thing, it kind of grew old really quickly. And so I started watching PewDiePie, and from there it went to Markiplier, and from there it went to Cryotic, and I just got, because we couldn't have consoles still. We couldn't have anything that you'd be sitting down and doing. And so that became the way that I really got into video games was by watching Let's Plays. And again, unfortunate start, but I have to be honest that is really like what got me and my sister, to be honest, back into video games, because we immediately went and we bought the Amnesia games. And we started playing them, never finished them because, again, we hate ourselves and buy games that terrify us. But it was this moment, though, where we just both had this collective, like, these are things that we want to be playing, but we still didn't have the means to, because it barely ran on my dad's laptop. But again, that was kind of a re-entry point where I was suddenly like, here's something that I really enjoy. And like, I'll be honest, I still watch Markiplier pretty regularly, but PewDiePie is on a different level now. We like to forget about him. I like to forget about him. But to be honest, like, that's what my re-entry point was. And then we get
I think that's like the unfortunate truth of probably a lot of people's, especially a lot of like younger people's kind of entry points to video games, is that like, especially when like YouTube and you being a YouTuber was becoming a thing, like,
oh yeah, definitely,
having these people that like weren't as problematic as they are now being their, it's like, I get it, it's embarrassing to be like, I play video games now because of PewDiePie. Like, obviously you have a history before that, but you're probably not in the minority in saying that like people like him are the reason that they bought their first console or played their first game.
And I don't know. So on one hand, I'm glad that I got back into it. On the other hand, really wish that wasn't why. But Anyway, then we get to Skyrim. Somehow, my brother, he convinced my parents to let him get a PlayStation 3. And I think he really, again, had to like sell it. But he, got enough money and he bought a PlayStation 3 and he bought Skyrim. And the thing is, I remember trying to play it and being like, I hate this. And then
I feel like that's the relationship a lot of people have with Bethesda games, especially like the like massive open world ones where you start it once and you're like, oh, this is the worst. Mm-hmm. How does anybody get any more than an hour into this? Well, and then you pick it up again.
Even now, I'll say that that's been my experience with Fallout. I've tried to pick it back up and I just can't do it. But Skyrim, it's like there was that one time where I tried it. I hated it. I never touched it. I didn't never touch it again, but I waited a while and then I tried it again, and oh, good Lord, that game, and I'm sure this is also true for a lot of people, I have the most hours logged on that game that over any other game I've ever played. And at this
I totally agree. Mine most, like, recently, I think, switched to, like, I would say I probably have more hours in Overwatch, but, like, I played so much
because
Skyrim.
What's happened, too, is... Again, it's one of those things where the glitches are awful and like, oh God, the mammoth glitches and, getting flung up into the air if you get hit by a giant. But
having that one guy from that one what was it? It's not the Dark Brotherhood. It's the one in, what is it, Winterfell? No, that's the Game of Thrones.
Winterhold?
Yeah, was that no?
Or
that's where the one racist guy. I don't know. There was one guy in the Companions where he was a werewolf, and literally my game glitched and he wouldn't leave me alone. He just kept standing in front of me, and I was like, I have to break this game now.
My sister, she had a Companions glitch where the first quest you have with them is to go rough someone up, and. Yeah. The person...
Did she already kill that guy?
Yeah, she'd already killed it. And so he showed up naked in a river. And she drug his body all the way back into their doorstep and was like, I can't do... I mean, like, obviously you can't say that, but she was screaming at our TV, being like, I can't rough him up. He's dead. And so she's never...
roughed him up the amount, like, there's no more roughing him up.
I know.
He has been sufficiently roughed up, maybe a little bit more than sufficiently.
He respawned in a river naked, and she can't do any of the Companions quests, because the thing is, by that point, she was attached to her character. But I think Skyrim for me...
Why you save multiple times.
Right?
Save multiple times. Anytime you try to start something, save it. It'll break. Those games will break anyway.
They will. But I think where you had this experience with Mass Effect, the ability... Because, like, even though I've had 3 or 4 different saves at this point on Skyrim across, like, 2 different consoles, but I've always played a woman and romanced a woman. Every single time. And
Ayla the Huntress is bae.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
Yep. I feel awful,
like, there's
though.
no reason to romance anybody else in that game because Ayla is like 110% like the woman of my dreams.
But you just want her armor. Don't
honestly
lie.
Like, same. I did want her armor, but I also wanted to marry her. I'm pretty sure I did in at least 2 of my games. So,
but I don't know, again, and that's not to say that it's good representation, because the thing is, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but having like default bisexuality isn't really representation. It's like, yes, it was great that I could romance a woman and there was like no repercussions to that. But at the same time, to have it not affect any kind of backstory in any capacity also draws the question of, is it true representation or not? And like,
I will give Skyrim like the benefit of the I don't know if benefit of the doubt is really where I'm trying to go with this, but just giving it to them that they didn't make it rigidly straight.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I mentioned Game of Thrones earlier. I mean, obviously there are characters in Game of Thrones that are not straight, but the kind of the relationships that you're given most of the time are very heteronormative, very, very, very bad representation of like healthy relationships and all that stuff. So at least within a fantasy realm, we weren't stuck with you can marry one man.
Yeah.
If you are a woman and vice versa. So I'll give them that at least.
No, and again, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm super thankful for what it did have. That's not to say that that's like the best they could have done. Is kind of where I stand.
Yeah, no, of course.
But I don't know, once my brother somehow weaseled a PlayStation 3 into our house, Skyrim was the big thing that I played on that, because again, it wasn't my own, but really, I feel like I'm kind of a baby when it comes to gaming, and whether or not that makes me qualified at all to talk about video games.
I mean, I also feel like a baby when it comes to video games, because like I said, like Metal Gear Solid is a game that just people talk about being a game that like changed games, you know? And I'm like, I don't know what that's like. I've never played that. Like I obviously have been present in the world for these massive changes in video games, but does that mean I was necessarily like a part of it?
Yeah.
No.
Because like, again, the point like I'm trying to get to at is the PlayStation 4 was like the first console that was actually my own. Like I bought it with my own money. It's mine.
I bought my PlayStation 4 by myself too.
Like
all of my other ones have been gifts. Like, thank you, Mom and Dad. You're the best. But I bought the PlayStation 4 with my dollar bills, y'all. Yeah,
and so to me, I don't know, like that's the first thing that's been my own, and like nobody else has an account on it, and like it's mine. And in some ways I had hesitations about starting this podcast, but at the same time I'm like, does that mean that people, you know, who grew up in households where like they couldn't enjoy video games for the longest time and it wasn't necessarily under their control due to financial limitations, like can they not have voices in the video game industry, and can they not have voices on critiquing video games? Because I think like everybody, if they play video games, have some sort of like valid claim to talking about them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even to an extent, people who don't play them should have an opinion, or they do have an opinion. Do we listen to those opinions? If you are a person who has a problem with the sex scenes in Mass Effect, come talk to me. You're wrong. That's an opinion I'm not about to listen to. And like I think that you have to have some sort of, I don't know. I'm kind of backtracking on that, what I just said, because like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, there was a lot of controversy with like video games and violence, and like how do we view that? And are these people who saying that are the people saying that video games are inherently violent and cause these violent outbursts, like, have they played video games? Do they know? Are they qualified to talk about them? So, you know, it's a question.
It is.
We're ignoring it despite we're baby video game players,
and that's
and we can talk about them anyway.
Another word of advice: you can be a baby video gamer, and it's okay. We like you too.
It's okay. we're really doling out the advice this episode.
It's great.
Getting it all out there.
We can write a book. That's what podcasters do. They write books, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at, okay, so way more qualified to talk about video games and way more qualified to write a book. I'm literally looking at Jason Schreier from Kotaku's like Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. He has a podcast. He's written a book, but he's also amazing and like a professional in this industry. And
we're not.
Yeah. So
what are you currently playing, Cheyenne?
I'm currently playing The Witcher 3. Buddy, The Witcher. I started The Witcher in 2015, like late 2015 when it first came out. And I played 6 hours and stopped, and I was like, wow, this is overwhelming. I cannot do this. And I've had it on my PlayStation 4 for a while. I did not play it originally on my PlayStation 4. I played it on PC. That also might have been a reason I was like, wow, this is really overwhelming, because wow, PC gaming is really overwhelming. But I have it on my PS4 right now, obviously, because that's where I'm playing it now. And I have had it in kind of like a backlog folder for a while and been like, I'm going to get time to play this game. If you're unfamiliar with The Witcher 3, God, how are you unfamiliar with The Witcher 3? it's 100+ hour game. Like it's 40-ish hours according to How Long to Beat. Big shout out to that because I go to that website all the time. Really doing great work over there. It's like 40 hours to beat the main quest. And coming from like my really like Skyrim, I couldn't dedicate time to beat the main quest. Okay. I've never beaten the main quest in Skyrim. I've never done it. I just get bored and wander off. But The Witcher 3 does what Skyrim kind of missed in terms of, and granted I'm only comparing them because they're like both massively open world RPGs. So like take this all with a grain of salt while I'm comparing it to Skyrim. What The Witcher did for me was that the storyline was compelling to begin with, but I still put it down. Mm-hmm. But then I picked it up and the storyline was so compelling. And I was like, wow, I love these characters. Mm-hmm. Wow, I'm going to beat this game. I'm 50 hours in. I'm really, really close to the end of the storyline. I'm like literally prepping for what I assume is the final battle of the base game. And then you have the massive, massive DLC that they've provided. Like CD Projekt Red is doing excellent work, and I really missed the boat with Skyrim, or not Skyrim, The Witcher. Fuck. Nobody can miss the boat with Skyrim. Todd Howard literally will not let us miss this boat. He's making sure that babies in the womb right now are going to be able to play it in 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. Skyrim
on your calculator.
Coming soon to a PlayStation 8 near you. Yeah, no, I really missed the boat with The Witcher 3 originally. I don't know if like I've become more dedicated, I think, to gaming, or more comfortable with that kind of the amount of hours that it would take to kind of like wholly dedicate it to a specific storyline. With Skyrim, you can just like meander and wander and kill and dragons. I mostly ran from the dragons, to be honest. But
haven't we all?
Yeah.
They're just obnoxious at some points.
They really
You're
are.
Like,
I'm
I just
trying
came
to get
here to get a crystal or
I don't need you to
some
come at
snow.
Me.
I don't need you to fight me right now.
Yeah, so I run. But in The Witcher is just like, I don't know. It's slow. I say slowly. I started it in December. Obviously, college student, don't have a whole lot of time to dedicate to it right now. I'm also like a person that works a job, and you know, it becomes very hard to dedicate a lot of time to video games when you work in retail during Christmas. So I started it, and it was, I don't know, it's kind of a game changer. I don't know if it's really a game changer, but I definitely agree with the reviews, the scores that it was given when it initially came out. Like, this is a game that I think everybody should play, especially if you like fantasy RPGs. It's massive. It's beautiful. It's beautiful on PC, but it's still beautiful on like a PlayStation 4. And yeah, I'm just like having a really, really good time with it.
I'm currently replaying Horizon Zero Dawn because I hate myself. But this game, I don't even know where to begin with this game, because for some reason, I'm going to hesitate to say like changed my life, but I love this game.
It definitely did.
So
I want it to be clear that like there are games that, like, regardless, even tiny games are like can be life-changing for specific people. And I've definitely being kind of a bystander in your like gaming experience, can definitely say that like I've never seen you take to a game the way that you took to Horizon. And I started Horizon. I've played Horizon. I put Horizon down. It's not for me, but like I know that you love it. So,
and the funny thing is, and this is where we're gonna talk about Kojima for just a little bit, but I literally only got Horizon Zero Dawn because it's by Guerrilla Games and it's on the Decima engine, and the Decima engine is what they're currently building Death Stranding off of, which I'm super excited for. Afraid it's overhyped, but I'm super excited for it, and I'm holding out so much hope because it doesn't make any sense, and we can talk about this later. I feel like we'll probably need like an entire episode where we just talk about theories, but I literally only got Horizon Zero Dawn because I watched a video with Kojima talking about why he picked this engine, and I was like, this game's got, you know, a woman protagonist. I want to play it. And so I got it for my birthday last.
Do it for the ladies.
Right?
I will give it to them that the designs of so many of those characters are so beautiful.
They're
that, like,
so pretty.
Every time you talk to somebody, even like remotely not hideous in that game, you're like, damn,
right?
Can I romance you? I mean, Aloy does not care.
Yeah.
But I care.
But this game just, I don't know. I got it for my birthday. I started playing it. I kept playing it. I really love the world building that they have done in the game. And I want to keep this, like, at least talking about this spoiler free. Because it's not like we're doing an episode on Horizon Zero Dawn. But
oh yeah, no, please don't spoil it. I think you've already spoiled the ending for me once. I think we definitely talked about it, but still.
But I love it.
Experience it for yourself. Go play it.
And I love the characters. And I mean, I've finished it, and I've finished the DLC, and I'm replaying it, and I'm about halfway through it because I just love the game. And for me, it's kind of at the point where it's almost stress relieving to kind of go through it, because the thing is, I know the story by this point. And so it feels, I'm going to be super cheesy, it feels like coming home.
Ow.
As of right now, that's what we're playing. This episode has been a lot of rambling. But it also gives
more
you
of that. Sign up, hit subscribe, like, share.
But I feel like it also gives you a good, just context for where we are, and
an introductory level. It's like you're taking a class. This is Cheyenne and Laurel 101.
I mean, it's true, but this is not how, like I said earlier, this is not how all episodes are going to be set up. In the future, we're going to have an in the news section of what we're playing that's going to be a lot more brief, and then we'll have our topic of the week. And our next episode, we'll actually have a guest. Her name is Zoe, and she's going to talk a little bit about just being a woman of color in the STEM field, but also talking about the rise of 2D animation again in gaming. So we'll have some input from her. But in the meantime, hit subscribe, download our podcasts.
Subscribe, like, share, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr,
all of those.
etc. Leave us a comment. We also, like I said, we have a Tumblr page. If you want to make a suggestion for a topic, send it there.
Yeah, send it, and we'll be happy to listen to it.
Yeah. If you're listening to this on YouTube, also all the links will be in the down bar. So.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
The Antepiece is recorded at DePaul University and was co-hosted and co-written by Laurel Tilton and Cheyenne Lewis. Special thanks to Jonathan Nichols-Pethick for letting us use his podcast studio. Intro and outro music is royalty-free Unreal Superhero 3 by Keygen Music, and uploads are every other Saturday. Thank you.